Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Greetings, humans. Welcome to the court of Those Were the Days, where media of the past is put on trial. We're going on a little adventure through pilot season. I have taken control for this week, and I've gathered some subjects for my inquiries. Here tonight, to answer for the crimes of humanity, we have the trigger-happy security officer, Audie.
Well, Commander, I looked over your record, and everything looks exemplary. You seem like a very good first officer on every ship you're assigned to. I did have an issue with you questioning your former captain's orders, but when you explain it was for the good of your captain. It makes sense. That said, I do need you to remember that you report to me and are to follow my orders every time. I understand loyalty and the desire to keep your captain safe as well, but my safety is to be second to every other life on this ship. Is that understood? Good. Now, as my first officer, I have one other special request for you. If anyone has a dog, can you handle that? They just freak me out, especially puppies. Everyone's they're so cute, but I'm like, no, they are not. One time on a shuttlecraft, I thought a puppy was coming at me, and I almost shot out the airlock. Those folks were not particularly happy with me. Anyways, dogs, all you. Understood? Good. I'll see you on the bridge.
A medical officer with a past, Steven.
Yeah, this is set design. You need a new bridge for a Star Trek show? Yeah, we should be able to do that. Lots of space. Got it. Pink. Whole lot of pink. We'll throw in some tan just to balance things out, okay? You want to fill that big open floor with anything? Just 2 chairs. You sure? Nothing else? You know, I have 20 feet of just nothing. Pink, tan, giant screen. Sounds like the future to me. You got it.
And a first officer who definitely knows how to do it manually. It's Travis.
You know, I hear this new captain's a real 10 forward, this is Lieutenant Johnson. No, the other one. Good morning, sir. Yes, I know. Weird you had to call me down here. The intercom hasn't been installed yet. No, it's going to get installed on Tuesday. What can I do for you? Yes, sir. Just let me take a look here. All right. Tea. No, I'm sorry, sir. I don't see any Earl Grey tea listed in the ship's complement. No, I understand, sir. Yes, no, I'll get right on that. Very good, sir. Earl Grey. Hot. Understood. I thought the new captain was French.
So here we are talking about one of these sci-fi classics of all time and arguably probably my favorite TV show ever, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Now, just in case anybody was calling my credentials into question, I do have here my great radio but I do have here my limited edition 25th anniversary Star Trek: The Next Generation Pez dispenser collection.
Oh
Just in case
my.
anybody was wondering.
That is
It's numbered.
fantastic.
Yes,
They did
please.
make
Well, in the
1.2
box.
million of them, but it is numbered. So Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm so excited about this. I did give us a doozy because it is a 2-parter, and then we're 45-minute episodes, and so it is an hour and a half of television, which is a lot. But we crammed it in here. Star Trek: The Next Generation. I feel like I don't have to say too much about it. Ran from 1987 to 1994, 176 episodes, a bunch of movies, several of which we don't really talk about. It's fine. Don't even worry about it. I love this show with all of my heart. Is basically where we're at. So this was appointment television in my house growing up, and we had my uncle worked for Bose, so he got a discount. We had big Bose stand-up speakers that were attached to the TV, and we didn't always have them on, but they always came on for Star Trek because I don't know how well we weren't on the ship a whole lot in this episode, but like you can hear the ship engine throughout the entirety.
Yep.
So it's just that it's really, really good. I don't know that it was in this pilot, but it does. I was just using TV audio. It's Um, so yeah, this is Gene Roddenberry's beautiful vision of a future that has less two-handed punching of aliens than the original series. But just as many alien babes somehow. So progress and
Weird
yet.
that.
Um,
Mhm.
I want to. So I want to. I know Steven, we've already been. You're new to the
Yeah.
all of Star Trek. We watched that one original series episode little while back, and that's
Yeah.
it for you, right? Like,
Spock's brain. Yeah, that was
yeah,
great. It was wonderful.
yeah. Um, do you feel like you have because you run in nerd circles, do you feel like you have
Yeah.
this weird passing familiarity because the rest
Oh
of us
yeah.
are all in it?
Definitely. Like I have seen more weird memed Star Trek than anyone has any right to that has not seen the show. Yeah, because I've seen bad lip readings of Star Trek. I've seen memes of Star Trek. I have seen jokes of Star. I have even uttered "Make it so," not knowing really the reference, just because I was in the room with people who did, and it seemed like the right thing to say. You know what I mean? It's like, did you see that ridiculous display last night? Kind of level of absurdity. Like, I will be
Mhm.
friends with these people, and if it takes pretending I know Star Trek to do it, by golly, I'm gonna do it. But yeah, I have a passing. And I mean, I was a Reading Rainbow kid. And I remember when
Right.
LeVar Burton took us to the set to show us the stuff.
Mhm.
I was a
Which I will
kid putting
point
my
out.
sister's hairbands on my
Yep.
eyes so I could be Geordie
Mhm.
LaForge. I didn't know his name was Geordie LaForge, but I wanted that to be that guy. So it's weird. Like
Mhm.
there's this whole world that I have just been orbiting, but never quite landed on the planet,
Yeah. So, per your intro, we did learn in that episode that a large part of why there is so much space is because they frequently put cameras there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why we need so much space because we're
Unbelievable
not
about a room.
redoing it every time.
I looked at it when he walks
Uh,
in the bridge and it opens up that first time. I was like, wow,
yeah.
there's some floor
There's so much
space.
room for activities.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is great.
Plus, I think some of that too, they want to make it look like the future. And instead
Right.
of
It's
it
like a
being what
luxury
space travel.
stateroom,
Yeah, exactly.
right? We're not crammed on an airplane. This is
Yeah.
nice. We can stretch
Mhm.
out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you
Um,
can.
Audie, what's your history with TNG?
TNG was my Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
It was my introduction to Star Trek, really, because it came on when I could watch it regularly. Um, I wouldn't say it was appointment television, but I watched the snot out of it for sure. Um, followed so much, watched all the watched Reading Rainbow, and when LeVar Burton was on there, doing all this stuff, I was like, I know what he's talking about. I know what he's talking about. That's so cool. That's so cool, kind of stuff. And then later, when it was gone, and then a certain uh cartoon called Gargoyles came along, and it was like voiced by most of this cast. I was like even nerding out for that show because it was all Star Trek, The Next Generation folks. So like,
Yep.
yeah, love this
Mm-hmm.
show, love it.
How about you, Trav?
So I was there on Saturday, September 26, 1987, when this episode premiered. I sat down on the floor in front of the TV to watch it with the whole family. And then I proceeded to watch like every single episode. It was absolutely appointment television. I had seen prior to that, I had seen some original series and I watched the animated stuff they would run on, I want to say it was Nickelodeon at one point. So I remembered those, but this was my Star Trek as well. This is what really got me into it. I was the perfect age. I rode all the way through TNG into DS9 into Voyager. I watched all of them. I remember like I have specific memories of watching the premiere of this, of watching specific episodes of it, and then watching again in reruns. I've probably watched the entire run of Next Generation at least 3 times.
Mhm.
And then some episodes another, half dozen, 10 times each.
Yeah.
I loved all of it. I was a big fan of the character of Data, as everyone was.
Mhm.
But I just got to love all of the characters and the way that you would have episodes that would be a specific character kind of fronting the episode. It would be a
Yeah.
Data episode or it would be a Worf episode, and that ensemble nature of everything too. So yeah, this was absolutely my show.
Dr. Crusher was and continues to be my favorite. And in adulthood, learning that Gates McFadden is one of the choreographers on Labyrinth blew my
Yeah.
mind. So
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I wanted to be her. That's why I wanted to be a redhead my entire life. Was because of Dr. Crusher. She was my hero. I think it was like probably my 9th birthday party. My birthday cake had the next gen like 4-inch
Nice.
action figures on it. That was my
Love
birthday
it.
cake. It was real good. Yeah, I was also a huge fan of the Reading Rainbow episode where they show you how you do everything. You know, they're like, look, this engine on this shuttlecraft, it's a Lady Bic razor.
Yeah.
And that
Uh-huh.
transporter, it's just sprinkles in water. Like, it's just
Yep.
glitter. Don't even
Mhm.
worry about it. Amazing.
Mhm.
I love that. So this is a wild pilot, and I actually really like a lot of the ways that they handled things. Because unlike a show, it's in a lot of ways they did things sort of like Cheers that we talked about, where you have characters that know each other, you have new characters, and the new characters help you to learn about the characters that already know each other because they get to introduce themselves, and
Yep.
it's a whole thing. And we start off running, and this is real good. I like a captain's log. It's a real good way to set up. Star Trek is at its heart a monster of the week show. So we need some, like, we got to get into it. We don't have time for a lot of exposition. We have got to get to the monster before we, can do anything. So the ship has this brand new Galaxy class starship. The Enterprise D is headed out on its first mission. We have to stop at Farpoint Station and we gotta pick some people up. First of all, there's weird stuff going on there, and we have to pick up the rest of our crew.
So is this Enterprise the same Enterprise or a new Enterprise?
No, this is NCC 1701D.
Okay.
The original one is, I think, the A, right? It's just
It's
it
the
didn't have a
original one was
letter.
just it didn't have a letter. It was just
It didn't have a
NCC
letter.
1701.
1701.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is like 5 iterations later.
'Cause
So it's
or-
like
this
we're
takes
just
place-
iterating over the same
Yeah.
ship,
Yep.
maybe outfitting it,
like
new
the
engines.
QE2, the QE3.
Yeah.
It's the next.
Because
the
this
next in
series
line.
takes place roughly 80 something years after the original series.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Is
I
the
picked
rough
up on
timeline
that
of
due
it.
to something that came along later. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, it's been a minute. Okay.
And before we get too far into it, like, I don't remember this pilot as well as I thought I did. But good lord, they crammed everything into this pilot.
So
like,
much into this pilot.
I
and
didn't
then-
realize that they crammed everything that we know of TNG in this pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Basically,
Which
yeah.
they
so
then
much
come
stuff.
back to
They
at the end in the finale. And
well, and just all kinds of things that they use throughout the series.
Yeah,
And it's
is
just
all
like,
in here.
oh, they started from the start with that. And like we said about Cheers, it's impressive the way they introduced everything. And yes, it's 2 episodes technically, but still, it is well paced throughout the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
hour and a half.
Yeah. Even Miles O'Brien, he's never mentioned
Mhm.
by name, but he is in this episode. He walked in and I was like, what?
Yep.
He's
Hang
not
on.
even credited as Miles yet.
No.
he doesn't have
he's
a
just the
name. He was
comms
just-
guy.
Uh-huh.
Yep. He was just liked enough in this particular episode that they brought him back later on and then made him a recurring character into.
On like a
s-
minimum of 3 series, right? Like
Mhm.
he's
Well, he ended
just-
up being-
he's probably,
yeah.
I think he's
Yeah.
still doing Star Trek, right?
I think so.
Some nonsense. So I think everybody is fairly, fairly established as who they are from the beginning. Like we don't have any major character changes by the time we get going here.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I
so-
think the only thing that really, like, the characters grew over the course of the series, but
Yeah.
the main couple of things that kind of grew was like the idea of Picard being like a career-minded guy who had no family and was bristly towards kids. There's
Yeah.
that whole exchange.
Mhm.
That, because Patrick Stewart is just kind of, Star Trek's grandpa, it sort of became they did do that a lot in the first couple of seasons, and he softened as you went along. And then you did meet some of his family, his brother and whatnot, in later
Yeah.
episodes.
Would you learn why
Um,
family is maybe not
Yeah,
his, you know,
right.
his
And
jam?
and other things like Troy over the course of the series
Yeah, they definitely
gets to
they didn't know
grow and
what to
actually
do with her a little bit.
No.
they
in
didn't,
this.
and they didn't really. I mean, it was 87, and there's still kind of this idea of it's a lot of old white guys writing and running the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And kind of
But-
figuring out some of those characters. They got much better. I mean, Roddenberry was very progressive
Absolutely.
and had a lot of very good ideas.
I mean, you see, because like in the original series, right, the male characters wore the pants and the female characters wore the little skirt,
Mhm.
and that was that.
Very little skirt.
Very little skirt. I have the original, the like technical manual, and I didn't realize it has patterns.
Yep.
Which is wild that it does have them, that you could, like, it's on a grid, you can expand it, but it has like the line drawings, and it says from like crotch to bottom of skirt is 7.6 centimeters, and I was like, no thank you.
Yeah, you
No,
can't sit
thank you.
down
I'm
on
gonna
a
need-
bus seat and
I'm
feel
gonna need a
comfortable.
few more.
Yeah, you're
Seven
taking
point
a
that manual.
you're taking a towel
Yeah.
with you wherever you go, because your bits are
Yeah.
going to be
That's-
sitting on whatever you're sitting on, and it's
Yeah,
not going to be
it's
great.
not okay.
Yeah,
That's not a
Um,
skirt. That's a belt.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's bad.
Troy eventually gets her bodysuit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I do like she has an arc through the series because she is an officer.
Yeah.
And she
Mhm.
doesn't wear the uniform for a lot of the series, and then she decides that she's going to take her bridge officer's exam, and it's a whole thing, and she becomes basically a medical officer because that's what she does, and
Mhm.
because she's the ship's counselor. I did see a comment talking about what a flex it is that Picard has his psychiatrist with him every time like a new species calls. Like, pretty
Mhm.
good, just in case you need him to calm down.
Did she
Right.
always have an accent like she has?
Yes.
It's through the whole series. Because for
Yeah.
some reason I
Yeah.
thought that she didn't have that at some point in a clip I saw, but I guess it was always there. But it's not super overt. It's kind of like depends on what she's saying, I guess, where you notice it.
Yeah.
A little bit. It definitely was jarring the first time I ever heard her speak, not
Yeah.
in character,
Yeah.
because it felt like a fairly natural accent to her, just the way she
Mhm.
portrayed Troy.
Yeah.
Um,
I think partly because she's British but has Greek parents, so I feel
Yeah.
like that accent is very much sort of that like middle ground.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart did one time come out with a thing that's like he's a British actor playing a French space captain on an American TV show. Like it was like a whole
Yeah.
convoluted thing.
Again, it was the 80s. I mean, this was a
Oh, it's
year after
only-
Highlander.
We're
Yeah.
still we're still giving French characters British accents. Like
Mhm.
it's it's just a thing. People
And given the way they play with characters, Steven, it's entirely possible you saw a thing where she was talking with a straight accent for a reason.
Could
Yeah.
be.
That's
Yeah.
true as well. Yeah.
yeah.
Could be.
She gets
But
some
even-
wild storyline.
Mhm.
Yeah. But there were even like little things in the first season where you have Tasha Yar, the security
Mhm.
chief, who ends up not being the security chief anymore and becomes Worf. He goes
Yeah.
from just being kind of a bridge officer to the chief of security. Geordi isn't at this point the chief
In
engineer.
engineering. No.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
just he's a bridge officer,
Yeah.
and he
Mhm.
becomes an engineer and the chief engineer later on. So like
I
those
think part
things
of that was that
changed.
they were willing to expand beyond the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have like there's a lot of other stuff going on.
Mhm.
And it turns out that the engine room is actually just super interesting.
Did the
We built it, we
security
might as well use it.
did the security officer stick around? Because I don't remember her from anything ever. Like,
Hmm.
There's an incident.
No.
There,
oh, okay.
but
It's
then
a-
later, it's a whole thing.
Okay.
It's both
Yeah.
drama in and out of the show. It was a lot.
Gotcha.
Like
Tasha
even
Yar is phenomenal.
after this episode, we're still gonna tell you must watch the rest of this first
Yeah, like
season
obviously
and
we're
you'll
gonna
get it.
say that because
But I
But,
mean,
yeah.
to know her story, watch it. It's
it's real
Mhm.
good.
All the
She's
Patreon content for Steven watches Star Trek.
Yes.
It's
It's
coming
really good.
every episode.
Mhm.
And then of course there's the obvious other one, which is Riker grows a beard.
Yeah,
Right,
Riker
the
without a
first-
beard
Very
is
nautical.
weird.
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah,
going
it was
on?
a first
Mhm.
season thing. They were like, I don't
They were
know.
all
And then second
babies.
season,
Well,
it's like,
because-
oh, there's his power.
I think it was when he showed up with a beard, and they were like, "Yes, this
Yeah,
is yes,
much better.
Well, because you have to think about like Star Trek when it started was very based in it being Starfleet being a military organization.
Yeah,
And so
Mhm.
they had grooming standards. If you watch the original series, everyone has not only no facial hair, the same sideburns. They were
Yeah.
part of the uniform
Mhm.
to have these like tapered sideburns. So when this started, they're following that same thing. But then somewhere at the beginning of season 2, probably because you're right, Jonathan Frakes just showed up with a beard and they're like, all right, I guess you can keep
no,
it.
Gene
And-
Roddenberry said very nautical.
Oh wow,
That
So-
was
okay.
his comment on it,
Nice.
and which it is. I mean,
Yeah.
By the way, if you want a fascinating discussion, there's a podcast called Inside of You from Michael Rosenbaum, who played,
Yes.
he was Lex Luthor on Smallville. And he does a podcast where he interviews people. And he has interviewed Brent Spiner, Gates McFadden, I think Will Wheaton, definitely
Yeah.
Jonathan Frakes. Listen to the Jonathan Frakes episode if you get a
Yes.
chance. It is unreal how good he is hilarious, and he is so just loose and relaxed and comfortable talking about it. He talks
Mhm.
about how much of a family they became making this show and how much
Mhm.
fun they had. And my favorite part is when Rosenbaum asked him about, because Jonathan Frakes ended up getting into directing because of Star Trek.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like he from the beginning was interested in it, so he shadowed the directors for like 3 seasons, and then they started letting him direct episodes.
yeah.
And he talked about how difficult it was being a director because they all screwed around so much on set.
Mm.
Like they
Yeah.
would, he's like, Dorn is over here wrestling people between takes. And
There's a
like Brent
gif
Spiner
of-
is doing this stuff. And he's like, they would literally screw around and crack jokes until the word action was spoken. And then they would settle in and do their scene. And as soon as cut, they would just go right back into it.
There's a
And it
gif
was-
of Patrick Stewart giggling after something happened that I use
Yes.
all of the
Yes.
time.
So good.
It's a cool
Um,
crew. I saw them at Dragon Con. It was Michael Dorn, Brent Spiner, Marina Sirtis, and Jonathan Frakes. And everybody came in the normal way you come to a panel, like onto the stage at the table, except for Jonathan Frakes. He came in through the back door and was like wandering past the crowd, like high-fiving everybody and waving. And we're like, we're on the edge of the seat. We're going to get to see Jonathan Frakes like up close. Me being not really knowing why
Yeah.
I'm excited. It's just you're just with everybody. You're like, this is great.
Yep.
Mhm.
You know,
There's
and it was great.
amazing there's an amazing video that goes around. It's a reaction video of there's a kid, he does Riker sitting on things with different challenge levels.
Yes.
Yes.
And Jonathan Frakes reacts to it
Mhm.
and says that he does a phenomenal job and it's so good. I
Yeah.
suppose I should tell my Will Wheaton story real quick.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because I have a Will Wheaton story. Because obviously Wesley Crusher on the list because it was the
Right from the
exact correct
beginning.
age. Like it was just
Mhm.
the correct age. So the very first Penny Arcade Expo in Boston, Will Wheaton was the keynote speaker. His speech was like wonderful and it ended with the phrase welcome home. And I just like it was all about being a nerd and it was just great, right? It was before there were so many nerd conventions. It was like very
Mhm.
and so I had his book and I waited in line forever to get his signature. And I had like an out of body experience while I was doing this because I get up there and as he's signing it, I do say, you were the first man I ever really loved. And he looks me dead in the face and says, and you grew up as beautifully as I knew you would. And I like almost died. Like I almost just died. Like I almost just died.
Wow.
So I find him a
Wow.
little irritating now, but at the time
mean,
it was like
that
Yeah,
is
a lot.
that is some smooth action right
I
there.
was
Yeah,
so
right.
that was some Riker nonsense.
Yeah.
I was
say,
not
Riker
prepared
ain't the only
for.
one pulling off the lines.
No, it was a lot. I was like, sir, come on now. So I guess I should actually talk about this episode because it's wild that we get Q.
Oh my
We
god.
get
Mhm.
Q from the beginning, and Q does come back several times, and he is like
Mhm.
the best part. So John Delancey was a soap actor, which is why my sister was very excited because she loved him. Like, oh, this is great. And I feel like playing an omnipotent being would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You know, you can get away with anything. So the gist of the episode from the Q side is that Q is trying to prevent the Enterprise because the Enterprise is on an exploratory mission. They're going out, and that is what they're doing. They're approaching the unknown edge of space for humanity. And the Q is like, no, you are a virus, and you should not, like, no, you can't go out there. And
Not wrong.
so Captain Picard argues with that, like, a lot of this episode I started being like, well,
Yeah.
Q's got a
um
point.
yeah.
Mhm.
um Q puts fine, we're gonna put humanity on trial then. That's great, and you all are going to answer for humanity. So there is a part where they're talking about, so they're transported to this definitely not at all Nazi looking courtroom
No.
that they made, but it's also like a rowdy medieval crap. It's so weird. It's so weird. Um, but the best part is they're talking about, like, oh yeah, the mid 21st century after the atomic, what was it, atomic nightmare or something like that,
Post-atomic horror.
post-atomic horror. And I just looked at, like, in the 80s I would have been like, oh, that would be awful. And now I look at it and I go, well, that seems about,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that actually
Mhm.
seems about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get the potassium tablets. Yeah, it seems about right.
Yeah. Oof.
Um,
When Picard says the line, "We humans know our past even when we're ashamed of it," and I'm thinking,
some
"Oh
of some
boy.
of us,
Oh boy.
some of us
Yes,
do.
Yeah.
some of us."
Ooh,
Mm,
this should not be so
mm.
point. I feel like we've gone backwards from
Yeah.
That's the thing. I was
1987.
like, "Holy!" Hearing that line today, I'm like, "Ugh."
We know
Yeah.
it. We just like
Okay.
to put our own spin on it now.
Yeah.
Mm,
Um, we get like hints at Tasha Yar's background, which winds up being, it's so good. Tasha
mhm,
Yar's background is great. Everybody's background is great.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
We did
Ta-
meet Picard's fish, Livingston.
yeah.
He has a lionfish that lives in the bubble in his office, which seems good.
During that court scene, Tasha Yar really, she really acted the bejesus out of that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
boy, we went to full tears and yelling. I don't know that this much, whatever you're doing was required for the scene, but you really went there. You really
There
took
was
it.
a
Mhm.
lot of acting. And so it's one of those things
Acting.
where it's like, yeah, no, there's just a lot of it, right? Like, because we wind up, I mean, this is the Deanna Troy problem, right? Because she can sense emotions
Oh
from
yeah.
other beings. And so it's like, that's hot. Like, it winds up for some weird stuff.
Mhm.
It winds up with a lot of people just staring at her while she
Yeah.
sobs or something. It's just they fixed that a little
And
later.
and not to mention the fact that when the show started, like, the rest of the cast has admitted how much they were intimidated by Patrick Stewart
How could you
coming and
not
being the
be?
captain,
How could you
you
not be?
know?
Royal Shakespeare Company.
Right. And it's like, we've gotta
What?
act next to this guy? Okay.
All right, I'm gonna
Ugh.
act it as hard as I can, which in Shakespeare
Mhm.
works out pretty well for you, but
Right.
Yep.
Shakespearean
on
actors are
TV.
scary. This quick anecdote reminded me of Shakespearean actors. Alan Rickman apparently scared Jay Muse so much in Dogma that Jay memorized the entire script because he was so scared he would upset Alan Rickman. So this must be like
Aw.
a Royal Shakespeare thing. Like you just scare the
Yeah.
bejesus
Yes.
out of
Well,
everybody into
and that was
I
memorizing their
mean,
lines.
that was a Jay Muse thing too, because like he got a lot of crap for was it Chasing Amy,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
and
showing up
so
not prepared.
Smith
Yeah,
Smith told him to be prepared, and so he memorized the script, the whole thing,
the whole
not
thing.
just
Yeah.
his part, everything.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, well, listen, if Ian McKellen showed up and you were gonna do like a thing with him,
Yeah.
Right.
what do
No,
you,
you're
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would try. I have
Um,
no training, but boy, I would give it all I had.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what Q says is your first destination, that's going to be your test. This is your test. All right? You either pass or you don't. And so this is like the B part. So it's this weird Farpoint Station, which I'd forgotten basically everything about Farpoint Station.
Mhm.
Um so Farpoint Station was built by the natives, and they're trying to forge a deal where Starfleet can use Farpoint Station as a base, and presumably the natives get something, supplies, latinum,
Yeah,
which
something.
is
They were
space
real
money.
eager for that deal.
Yeah. And everything about this place is perfect. Um Riker is meeting with the leader.
Can,
And
okay,
yeah,
pause real quick, just before
yeah,
we get there.
yeah.
First time we're in Next Generation, they go ahead and just separate the saucer section.
Separate the
Holy
saucer
crap.
section at warp speed. So it was because the theme started up, right? It's like, no, this is not that old
Right.
enterprise like this one.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Which
was a
that's the thing
big
too.
deal.
When you see
And that
them
was
evacuating people, and you
uh-huh.
see the diversity of people that are on that ship
Mm-hmm.
in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And
it's yeah.
I very specifically noticed a dude wearing the skirt
Yeah.
uniform, and I felt
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
much
I had to
more
double take
justified
on
in
that
that
because I was
illustration.
pretty
No,
sure I
I
saw a
knew.
dude, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I knew that was a thing.
Mhm.
They kind of get away from that later in the
Yeah.
series.
Well, what
Mostly
ends up
because the
l-
skirt uniform is terrible.
yeah,
Was
It's
it-
but
just
also
not
like
good.
later on, it would show up in like background because they just had them,
Yeah.
and
Right.
they didn't have enough budget to give like everybody new uniforms because the
Yeah.
uniforms changed over the course of the series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
They
I
went
probably
from
can't.
right now, like this first episode, they're one piece jumpsuits,
Yeah.
Right.
but
Oh
They're
yeah,
one piece
yeah, yeah.
jumpsuits for a while.
Mm-hmm.
and they're made out of
Um,
spandex, and
all
they're
I
not
can think of
comfortable.
is Gates McFadden talking about how bad they stank.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Because you just can't wash them that often. Because it's
nope.
not real good fabric for washing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
colors would
Spritz them down
fade.
with vodka and hope.
Oof, that's awful. That
But
dude in
man,
the
this whole
skirt reminded
episode.
me of Zap Brannigan. That's all I
Yeah.
could think of when I saw him.
That's probably, honestly, that's probably where Zap got it.
He might
Yeah.
be right. Yeah.
It's very likely.
This whole episode, I was thinking of it as like from the position of a Star Trek fan who hasn't had Star Trek on TV for very long, and then this comes along and all the things they do in this episode, it's just so new. Like
So
saucer
many.
section, boom.
Boom.
You know,
Mhm.
hey, that
And
thing on
they,
the lapel, that's the communicator now. Boom.
Yeah,
Like,
that was cool.
Mhm.
whoa, okay.
you can get Bluetooth ones.
Yeah.
Yep.
The technology is so good now. I'm like, so, I
Mhm.
mean, like, and so this is a big thing, right? iPads
Yep.
directly, like, directly come from Star Trek, like
Mhm.
100%. I know there's other things too, and they've completely escaped my mind right now. iPads are the big one though. Those they were like, yeah, no, that actually is great. Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
The doors are one of my favorite stories because the doors are not actually automatic. Like
Nope.
there are people pulling ropes to open the doors. So sometimes they wouldn't open
Mhm.
exactly on time, but you had to walk at the door
Like
as if it would open because
Mhm.
and so like I think it's Jonathan Frakes has stories about just walking face first into doors that didn't
Yep.
open on time because you
Yeah.
have to walk through them with authority or else it's not going to be
Mhm.
believable.
hmm
That's
I've seen
amazing.
some like blooper clips of just
Yeah.
people like walking into them, or you just hear them hitting the door on the other side of the
Yeah.
turbo lift, and then it
Uh-huh.
opens up, and they're coming out like rubbing their forehead.
Yeah.
It's great.
So Farpoint Station is weird and we get a couple of instances of people getting exactly the thing that they wanted. Riker's in meeting with what was his name? What was his title?
Groppler.
Groppler Zorn,
Groppler Zorn.
Groppler Zorn.
Groppler.
That's real good.
played by the
Um,
way, played by
yeah.
Michael Bell, who, if
Mhm.
you don't know who Michael Bell is, you've heard his voice because he was
Mhm.
one of those stable of voice actors. He was Duke in G.I. Joe. He was in
Mhm.
and a bunch of other voices. He was a bunch of voices in Transformers and so on. And he's one of those IMDb pages with like 380 something credits.
Yeah.
Because he's just done voice work forever.
Um. So he's in there, Riker, and he's like, here's some human delicacies, and he puts over a bowl of fruit that's got like bananas and currants, which were weird choices, but that's fine.
Mhm.
Riker's like, man, I wish he had an apple. And then like a bowl of apples is just suddenly on the desk.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's this whole thing. And so he takes the apple and he's like, yeah, all right, great. Thanks. Because he's already suspicious that this place is weird. He leaves and Zorn is talking to
Yeah.
we don't know
Someone.
Mm-hmm.
about how you can't do that. Like you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get us
Mm-hmm.
caught. They're gonna find out. Blah 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 blah. I've lost all of the like everything has blended now as to when things.
So I
happened,
like
whatever.
how you said Riker was suspicious. We don't know that until after that scene, and he catches up with Dr. Crusher and Wesley,
Well,
and is
he
trying
was
to
in
tell
there
her.
talking about. He was in there trying to find out about like how do you get all the power for this place,
Right.
and you
And-
know, like
and-
he's asking some deep questions.
Sure.
How
Yeah.
did
And
you build
it's
it
like,
so
get that.
fast?
But then the Apple thing happens, like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
cool. And then in the next scene, when he's trying to tell Dr. Crusher what happened, like,
Yeah.
oh, he played it off. Like,
Mhm.
I was
Yep.
impressed that they wrote him smart enough to play it off. And then it's like, okay, something's going on here, doctor. We need to
Yeah.
Yeah.
figure something out. And the doctor's like, oh, whatever. And then it's like the fabric thing happens. Like, okay, I think you're onto something.
Now I do like they do have Wesley come up and be like, that print wasn't there. Yeah, no, we caught that, man. Like, like,
Yeah.
no, we got it. Thanks though.
Beginning of Wesley trying to tell us again.
Mm-hmm. When do we get Admiral McCoy? Because I don't remember.
So
At what
it's
point that
after
happens.
After they reconnect.
it's after the saucer. Yeah, the saucer comes back
Mhm.
Okay,
and they
after they
reconnect.
reconnected.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I wrote
Saucer
down that
comes
I bet
back.
Riker never fails to plug in a USB right on the first try.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Because
If you ask
we
a lot
also-
of the female members of the crew, they can tell you that.
We also get the one little moment where Geordi's talking to Dr. Crusher about his visor, and
Oh,
we get the
yeah.
information that he's always,
Always
in
in
pain.
pain.
And it's like, oh, okay, so Geordi's our Wolverine. Got it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Later though, at one point, he has an infection and they fix that. Like they get away from that
Oh yeah.
pretty early on. I just wanted her to like take it and just bend it out a little bit and hand it back to him and have it be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Because that felt like a very like, no, let's just
Mhm.
fix this. It's fine.
But
I didn't realize they
and-
ever
and-
showed his eyes. I thought
Yeah.
that was new to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Every
didn't
once in a
know
while.
that.
Yeah, every so often you'd get that. And what I like is we talked about this last week with like the writing being great right off the bat.
Mhm.
And this was some good writing here because you have to have that exposition dump of sort of he's been blind from birth and this helps him see and blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. But to
Because you
have it
saw
be like,
him on the
Yeah.
planet.
Mhm.
Right.
And you're
Yeah,
like,
we've
what is
seen
the
him and,
deal
like,
with
what-
his thing? What
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
what?
but to get that and to have it be like it's his medical exam coming onto the ship with the doctor, and then for him to just spout it all out and go, I'm sorry, apologies if I've said and heard this 100
Yeah.
times already.
Anyone with a
Like-
chronic illness knows that feeling.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I have been over all of this so many times. Please just read the paper.
Yeah,
Please.
but it instantly makes him relatable.
Yeah.
And I mean LeVar Burton is a great casting choice
He's
anyway, but it makes him so relatable, and it shows that the doctor, we're getting a little bit of information about the doctor, and we just, it's all of this. The way they meet everybody is great
Right.
because you have to have those meetings, and they have to, and because it's a military organization, them saying their name isn't going to
Mhm.
be, doesn't feel as forced.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you obviously would. I did forget to mention when Q first shows up and he goes through a series of costume changes because that is what Q does best is a series of
Yes.
That was
costume
good.
changes. So he starts out as like a conquistador, which is very apt for his perspective as what
Mhm.
this ship is doing.
Yep.
Love that. He's like, fine, something more modern then. And then it's like a World War II
Mhm.
soldier,
Complete with cigarette.
complete with
Yeah.
cigarette, which is so good. Which then that's the whole the whole atomic bomb, and people think that is how we got contact with aliens. That's a whole deep. I'm not going to inflict any of this on you. But then, but then, but then we get future military
With the
Mhm.
and their
drugs.
padded armor, which apparently doesn't do anything because that guy
Nope.
in the courtroom just gets shot.
Yeah.
But the military is controlled by drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brave New World
Mhm.
stuff.
So good. And that outfit is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So dumb. It's so
So
dumb. I loved
dumb.
it.
It's really great. And it
Yeah,
just says
EVA
army on his
foam.
little drug thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. It wasn't even as good as I think it was like couch foam. Like it was
Yeah, it
just
was
very
Yeah.
soft.
It was very
They just
terrible.
sewed a couple patches on it and it was like, there we go.
There we go. We're there. I loved it. I loved it. They're like, we're gonna use this for like 2 episodes and you're never gonna see it again. We're not spending any money on this.
There was so like
Right.
Star Trek as a future has such this weirdly, especially in this era, has such this weirdly like sanitized look to it,
Mhm,
where all the clothing is futuristic looking.
mhm.
And one of the reasons that they were wearing jumpsuits and they zipped up in the back early
Yep.
on was because there's no zippers in the future.
Sure.
That was the thought process. So
Why
none of
not?
the clothes
Later on.
are
First
like
episode
that.
Yeah.
though, you can see that zipper in front. It's like that's where
Yeah.
we got in. Okay.
Yep.
Well, they eventually moved to two-piece uniforms, which was a
Yeah.
lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's where we get the
Or
Picard
the-
maneuver.
Yep. My
Because
favorite is anytime we get casual clothing. It's so
oh,
good. Like we're just all wearing flowy loungewear if
mhm.
we're not in uniform, and I am here for it. Like, yes.
Picard particularly likes his deep
Loves it.
V-necks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean Riker too. And then they do they exercise, like they go to the gym, and the
Mhm.
girls have the like 1982 super high cut
Yep.
leotards
Yeah.
with tights. They're,
Yeah. Decent. You know?
yeah.
All I gotta
But
say is I
it's
wonder
a
how
lot.
much power is spent on the temperature control on that ship because
Yeah.
everybody's just doing fine.
Everybody's great. Um so yeah. So we come to find out. So this other ship appears. Right? Is this now?
Yep.
I don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is now because Riker has been looking for Lieutenant Commander Data for a while.
Right.
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
can't find him. And first, it's
Hmm.
because Data is escorting an admiral to a
Yes.
shuttlecraft,
Right.
which is
Bones.
such a great moment because he's
So
got
good.
McCoy.
And
Which,
I
if anyone
noticed
knows about transporter mishaps, it's him.
right.
Yeah.
The one little thing I noticed that I loved about that is just at the end when they're walking away, you can see that Bones is wearing an original
Yep.
series
Yep.
costume, like with the pant
Yep.
With the
legs
pants.
tucked in
Yep.
and the tall boots. And I was like,
Yep.
wow.
Yeah.
I
It's real good. Yeah.
I wrote down one quote that he said that I just found to be the quote I'm going to say when I'm like 85.
Mhm.
Because he was saying, I would hate to trouble you, but what make you walk this far? He said, what's so damn troublesome about not having died?
Yeah.
I'm like, I really
Yeah.
like that. I'm gonna use
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
Bones for you.
That was really good.
Yeah, it was perfect.
But then we get to meet Data again in the holodeck.
We
so
get to learn about the holodeck.
Got
That's
the freaking
cool.
holodeck
We
again
got the
in the
holodeck.
first freaking episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to learn how it works in the first episode. So that later, when Moriarty steps off of it, we're all okay with it, which is so far down the line.
Mhm.
It was
So
really cool how they
good.
explained
Even
the
Nico.
holodeck, though. Like the way they
Mhm.
they said that we can take you from a planet and then re-engineer all the molecules to make you copy or put you up here
Yeah.
with us. Like
A plant,
rocks
that's
and plants
easy.
are easy. Like we can
Yeah.
Mhm.
rearrange molecules all day. Look at us. It was
Which makes sense.
really
I mean,
cool.
they
Yeah.
have replicators.
Yeah, I bought
Like,
it
Yeah.
yeah.
instantly, and it didn't take a whole bunch of exposition to explain it. Just you see
Yeah.
what we do when we beam you up. That's what we do with this
Mhm.
stuff. Same process.
Yeah.
Really cool
Yep.
to me.
So good.
Yeah,
Um,
A1 pilot writing. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't
And
need to
just
introduce this now, but we did.
Yeah.
yeah. And just Riker's introduction to Data was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Data's like, "Are you bothered by me?" He's like, "A little bit, but for reasons."
Mm-hmm.
And he's still playful with him. He's like, "Okay, Pinocchio." And Data's like, what?
Well, you get you're kind of establishing the different levels of tension between different crew members in this
Mhm.
Right.
episode. There's Riker and Data, and then there's Picard to Wesley. Like there's all this
Mhm.
tension
Yeah.
And
that
how
you're
they
creating.
deal with that tension.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
making it a thing yet because it doesn't have to be, but you're setting those foundations for later. If this needs to escalate, we've already got some foundation for why
Mhm.
this is a
Right.
problem or could
Yep.
be a problem. It's really good stuff.
See, Riker really wanted to be a graphic designer, but then AI are just stole all of his work, and then he had to become. He had to learn how to manually reattach the saucer section.
Mhm.
Love
He's
it.
really good geometry though, like
Yeah, he's
-5
really good at
degrees.
geometry.
What?
Why he's so good at music?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Riker plays the trombone, Steven. He
What?
plays the trombone.
Yeah.
They
Of
do
course
it a
he
lot.
does.
It's real
Oh, yeah.
good.
Good
Real
choice.
good.
Listen, if there's one thing that this show did, it was make Riker. He would play music and he'll show off his chest hair.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Riker
He
is
will
an
absolutely do
80s
that.
male hero if there ever was one.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, all right. We'll never get to all these episodes, so it's fine. There's an episode where Picard is going on leave because Picard hasn't been on leave in I don't know how long, and they're like, just go to Risa, which is the pleasure planet. Just
Mhm.
go. You need a break. And Riker goes, hey, while you're there, can you get me this thing? And Picard's like, yeah, sure. So he gets Riker this statue. And so he's just sitting by the pool in his little deep V robe, trying to read his book. And he's got the statue for Riker next to him. This woman comes up and tries to get with him. Oh, it turns out that the statue thing that Riker told him to get is, like at the Brazilian steakhouse when you do the green side and the red side? That's the green side for looking for companionship. And Riker knew that. And it was Riker wingmanning from
Mhm.
space.
Oh, that's
And that's the
good.
kind of first officer you need to have.
Yep. Well done,
Mhm.
Riker.
Um, Very long story, not at all short. We come to find out this other ship appears, but it's
Mhm.
not a ship. There's this whole thing where Troy can feel these very big minds. It's not a ship. It's another being. It is a being. It is a space jellyfish.
Mm-hmm.
Q shows up and is like, time's up. Let's go. And Picard is like, I am dealing with some stuff right now, like this
Mhm.
weird space jellyfish. What they eventually, the short version that they eventually figured out is that the people down on the planet captured and used this space jellyfish that can transmute energy into matter to build Farpoint Station, and they have trapped it and they are harnessing it to do all of these things.
Mhm.
And so Q's like, why would you think that? Like, he's trying to make them screw up. Not well. He's not good at it.
No.
So they send down an energy beam to feed the one that's on the planet. And it they evacuate Farpoint. I don't know how they did it so quickly, but sure. And then the blue space jellyfish comes up from under the Farpoint Station. It flies up and then it holds tentacles with the pink one.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're so happy forever. And Troy's
Yeah.
like, "This is joy." It's like, yeah.
Yeah, Avatar,
This-
you weren't the first one to do that.
Yeah,
Technical
no,
and
yeah.
basic thing.
Yeah. This actually
And
is
Q's like, "I'll get you next time, Gadget."
this seems like the direct inspiration for a side quest in God of War Ragnarok where you release 2 jellyfish from underground. And I was like, wait a minute. Is that where they got this? I kid you not. Your
Yeah,
entire
probably
mission
is.
is to go underground and release these jellyfish that are trapped in all these vines with the cool axe. And they fly into space. It's a beautiful show. And I'm like, oh my word. That's where these jellyfish came from.
I mean,
Kratos
Yeah.
unleashed the jellyfish, and then one was captured again underground as a space
Yeah.
city. I should investigate
mean,
that. I got to
sure
get a hold
is.
of a God of War quest maker and be like, tell me this is the same jellyfish.
they saw it as a kid, and then it just embedded
Yep.
in their head,
Mhm.
or it's a reference to some deeply obscure myth.
Sure.
that we don't know about, and they're just going with it.
Yeah, that's just in two
Yeah.
things. They have a common ancestor in myth.
Yeah,
I like to believe that those Ragnarok jellyfish are these jellyfish in the
I
future.
think I like to believe that.
Yeah,
That's
Works
really
for me.
Uh-huh.
good. I do like the Q at the end. So Q shows back up in a Starfleet uniform, which he does a
Mhm.
lot, and it's really good every time.
Oh, it's great. And
Um,
Picard hates it
Yeah.
every
Picard
time.
hates it.
I
He didn't
also
earn
loved
it,
it
man.
from the one thing I noticed from the beginning is his first personality was the conquistador, and he
Yeah,
uses Capitan all the
all the
time.
time. Well, because yeah,
Like,
he talks to Picard, yeah, all the time. Um, and yeah, Q's like, fine, you win this round. I'll be watching you. I'll
Picard's like,
probably
I
come
mean,
back. He
that's
does.
gotta, it's your first mission. You're on a brand new ship, and you meet an omnipotent being who's like, "Look, you're under double secret probation, and I'm going to be watching you from here on out."
Yeah,
Cool.
and
you
Picard's like,
represent all of
get the hell
humanity.
off my ship.
Yeah,
Yep.
get the hell off. I like Q because Q, like, so the original series had like the Nazi planet and the cowboy planet and that kind of thing. We've established Q and the holodeck. So
Mhm.
now we can have the Western adventure and the Sherlock Holmes adventure
Yep.
and the Robin Hood adventure. And we don't have to have like, oh, here's a whole planet that's Robin Hood. Like
Right.
we've built it in. We can still do those dumb things that are so much fun, but we at least are not like killing lore in order to get it done,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
which is really good. Big fan.
We established from the beginning we're gonna have our cake and we're gonna eat it too.
We are going to
Mhm.
eat it too. Yeah. It's going to be really good. Um and so now like we're great. Now we're off to go explore space, I guess. Here we go. Our continuing mission, which they
Mhm.
learned from the first one. Don't put
Don't
an
put a time
end date
limit
on it. What are you doing? Because this was what, 5-year mission, right?
Oh,
Originally, it was a
yeah.
5-year
Original
mission.
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's just the continuing mission. Because that was the thing
Mhm.
when I was a kid. I used to get like every now and then my dad would put on original track, and I didn't like. I like the Voyage Home, obviously,
Mhm.
because it's the best. But I didn't like. I was like, no, they're doing it wrong. Like, this is
Mhm.
incorrect. What are they doing? Um. So yeah, that is how my favorite show of all time started. We saw it.
Yeah.
And I forgot how much was in it, and it was all
Yeah.
pretty wonderful. How did
So
we feel
Mhm.
going back to this pilot, Travis?
it was hard for me to not just like forget everything else and just watch Star Trek. I
Mhm.
wanted to just keep going.
Yeah.
I need more hours in my day so I can watch more episodes of Star Trek again because it's been a few years since I've watched TNG.
Yeah.
And like I just want to go back to it because it's just
Mhm.
so comforting. All of it is, and all of the characters, and then knowing kind of where some of the storylines are going to go, and the
Mhm.
guest stars we're going to get, and the all of that. I just want more. So this was so much fun.
Yay. How about you, Adi?
Oh, same. Like I've been saying, like just my mind exploding with all the things they introduced just in this first couple
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
episodes, that just laid the groundwork for everything they did in this series. Like, here's how everybody meets, here's their personalities, here's the holodeck. Just, yeah, have it. Here's Wesley. He's gonna rub off on the captain. Don't worry, it's gonna happen. Kind of thing. Data the android and how he weirds out people. And are you undamaged? I'm good. How about you? I'm fine. It's like, okay,
All
great.
right.
Let's go. Yeah, it
Steven,
was it was so fun.
Steven, how was your first foray into the next generation?
I had a really good time. I mean, as you
Good.
remember from when we did Spock's Brain, I had a really great time with the original series. I
Mhm.
thought it was super fun. I thought this was super fun. It was it, it was about what I expected, But it was also just another top-notch pilot episode of TV. I got everything I needed to know, and I really know from episode 1 whether it's something to keep watching or
Yeah.
something to not keep watching, which is
Right.
great because a lot of times people tell you like, oh, give that show 3 episodes to really find its feed, or like in the case
Yeah.
of The Office, a modern sitcom, like that took a whole season and then a few
Yeah.
episodes into season 2 before it figured out what it was gonna be. And like this
Yeah.
show,
I like
it knew right out the gate.
Yeah, I like a
Yeah.
show that lets you
Mhm.
like Game of Thrones episode 1. You
Mm-hmm.
know pretty quick whether that's going to be for you or not.
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
can handle the
They
last
pack
3
it all
minutes,
in.
you're good.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
that's
you're fine.
it's your jam.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Next Generation's first season has some rough points. There are some
Sure.
episodes that
Absolutely.
there are some episodes that are just not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the pilot to be as strong as this was, and like you
Mhm.
said, you know right away, is this a
Yeah.
show for me? Yep. All right, let's go. And you can
Mhm.
kind of wade through that first season, and then it really picks
Mhm.
up in season 2, even more. And there's obviously it went for 7 seasons, and it didn't
Yeah.
get canceled. They just decided 7 seasons was enough.
Was enough.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and it's a
and
show
the-
that I want to like as
Yeah.
well. Like I'm just
Mhm.
always around a bunch of nerds. There's shows that those nerds like that I'm just never gonna like because I don't really care and I don't want to. But
Yeah.
Star Trek has so much to it, and as a storytelling fan, I just
Yeah.
love that there's that many things that get played with, and all these toys
Mhm.
in the toy box that they can goof around with, and it's just like an endless possibility kind of show. I love it, and I want
And-
to dive in more.
The thing I like about even the episodes that aren't very good, they're still trying something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they're taking a risk. Doesn't always pay off, but that's at least something.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
There's a weird so when we did pilots the first time, I did Doogie Howser, and that second episode has that weird thing about the woman who wanted to have his baby.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The second episode, well, after the first 2 that are the 2-part 1st
Mhm.
episode, the second episode is the one where they're infected by the virus that makes everybody act like they're intoxicated and everybody gets real handsy. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
why this keeps happening, but second episode, I was like,
Oh,
that's the
boy.
second episode. The naked now is the second episode.
and that was a like a retread of an original series episode.
Yes.
There was the original series episode was called The Naked Time.
Yeah.
And that one, if like people remember it because it had the scene with Sulu sword fighting in a hallway shirtless.
Yeah. See, the thing
And we
about
get stuff like that, not quite
Yeah.
to that level, but we get stuff like that in the second
this.
episode of the
Mhm.
series.
So there, if you do watch more Star Trek, you will see so much like your favorite Futurama episodes are actually Star Trek episodes. Like season
Mhm.
1, episode 13, Angel 1 is the Snoo episode. Like it's just that. It's a matriarchal planet. It's a whole thing. Like
Oh
it's
wow.
just that. Like it's just directly lifted.
Yeah, it's basically
fantastic.
just Futurama took it to the absurd level.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, I have to say, watching this again, how good does that ship look
It looks so
in
good.
all of those shots of the ship
Yeah.
in space? Like the fact that it's it's a model that they have to shoot it, but the way they do it and to do multiple passes and get it so you see the ship and it's got windows on it and you're seeing like some of them are lit up and some of them aren't, and the glow of the nacelles and all of that, like it just looks so good. And then you realize it's 35 years ago, 36 years
Yeah.
ago that they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still
And
works.
for it to hold up that well.
And you can track down some of Adam Savage tested videos where he's gone and looked at these
Yeah.
props and sets and seen how they were really big to be able to be shot well and everything, and how much detail was there from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's super neat.
So, that was Star Trek. We've got one more week of pilots.
We do.
Travis, you're up.
Yes. So, you took my favorite show and did the pilot of it. So I couldn't
That's
do
what
that.
happens when you're at the bottom of the batting order, my friend.
So what I'm going to do is a pilot of a show I haven't actually seen before.
Wait, you haven't seen?
I know.
Wow.
But
We are going to watch the pilot to Twin Peaks.
Oh, snap. I've heard about this my
So-
whole life, and I've never seen an episode.
This is what Travis was running options by me before the show. And I said the number of people who put Aquilo and Twin Peaks in the same breath are like a lot.
Wow.
And I have also never seen it.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to watch for next week is the pilot episode of Twin Peaks, which, I mean, I remember it as a cultural phenomenon. I remember people talking about it when I
Yeah.
was there. I was too young to really watch it in 1990.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have understood it anyway, even if I had watched it.
I'm worried I
But,
won't understand it at 38, Travis. But
Well,
it'll be fine.
we're going to
We have
find
the
out
inter-
next
like,
week.
It's fine. We can just look it up. There's a wiki. I'm
David
sure there's a
Lynch is
wiki.
David Lynch is a thing. He's an entire genre. Should be good.
Yeah. So this is
excited.
David Lynch doing television, and I can't wait. I'm really excited to talk about this. So that's what we're watching next week. It is available on Paramount Plus.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm
it is now.
excited. This would be great.
Did we get any feedback this week, boys?
Oh snap! You know what? Hold on. Let me talk to our producer in the room
Hang on, let me consult with the computer.
over there. Yeah, let me double check. No, we didn't. We do have some guy who emailed us about wanting to build an app with us. I don't know what that means. I'm pretty sure that's
they
spam.
don't. That's just spam. Put it in the folder. But you can email us at thosewerethedays@gmail.com.
Yes.
And on we're on the former Twitter at Those Days Show, and someday we'll be other places, but we've got a lot going on, quite
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us this week to talk about Star Trek, and go watch the pilot of Twin Peaks. Come back next
Yes.
week. So
Yes.
excited. Till then, have some good TV. Aw, yeah.